What's up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the numbers. These are my Draftkings MMA picks for UFC Vegas 30. We have Cyril Gane going against Alexander Volkov, and as always, I'm really looking forward to this card. I think there's going to be a lot of finishes on this card. We are back in the small cage once again, and I can see some really high scores. So really looking forward to it. Can't wait to break it all down. Before we do, if you guys can leave a like on the video, also subscribe if you have not yet so you don't miss out on the other content coming out on the channel. Friday, the 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time live stream after the weigh-ins, and then on Saturday going live 1 hour prior to when the prelims start, which the prelims start at 1 o'clock, so going to be going live at 12 to answer any final questions and talk some fights with you guys. So with all that out of the way, I say we get into it. Starting with the fight doesn't go to decision lines, and it was really weird last week. Out of the 6 most likely to end inside the distance, only one of those end inside the distance, and the 6th least likely to end inside the distance, 5 of those 6 ended inside the distance. So I think we had like 6 finishes. I think half the fights last week did finish, but I can see even like more finishes this week. And we'll start with Worley Alves going against Jeremiah Wells. We have Wells, who's going to be a newcomer. And it's an interesting fight because we know that Alves, he starts out very strong, very dangerous in that first round. We saw in his last fight against Munir Lazzez, got that first round finish, which did surprise a lot of people, including me. But I think it's another instance where he probably has a really good shot to end this in the first round, going against Wells, who he's never been finished in his career out of 10 fights. But you take a look at who's been fighting, and he's never fought anybody anywhere close to the skill level of Alves. So I'm kind of leaning towards Alves getting that first round finish. It's just if he does not, we have seen Alves slow down, quite a few times before in the past. We have seen Alves finish, and Wells, he's not a bad fighter. I think he's very well-rounded. He's a black belt in BJJ. He has a lot of power as well. I've seen him put people out cold. So this is a fight that I'm going to be wanting to target both sides. I'm more so on the Alves side, but Wells at 7,000, we'll talk a little bit more about it. I don't think he's a terrible pump play at that price, just in case Alves is not able to get that first round finish. All right, next we have Danilo Marquez going against Kennedy and Zekachu. Very interesting fight, sitting at the 8,200, 8,000 price tag. I feel like it's a clash of styles. Either, Marquez is going to be able to get this down to the mat, get some control time, get takedowns, possibly get a submission, or Kennedy and Zekachu is going to be able to stuff those takedowns, keep it on the feet, and probably, honestly, to destroy Marquez on the feet and probably get a finish by strike. So one of those matches where I do think you're going to need both sides, one of those matches where I do think it scores well no matter the winner. If Marquez wins, it's probably based off of takedowns, control time, possible sub. If Kennedy and Zekachu wins, it's probably a ton of strikes. He throws a ton of volume and probably a finish as well the later the fight goes on, as Marquez does tend to slow down as the fight goes on as well. So for me personally, I'm more on the Kennedy and Zekachu side, but I do like both sides here, but I'm going to be playing a little bit more of the Kennedy side this week. Next, we have Ike Villanueva going against Marcin Prachnio. Interesting fight. We have seen both guys get finished quite a few times in their career. Prachnio has been finished 4 times. I think all 4 of those in the first round as well. Ike Villanueva has been finished 10 times out of his 11 losses. So both guys, capable of being finished. Both guys capable finishers, with Prachnio a 78% finish rate, 71% by knockout. Ike Villanueva 83% finish rate, all 83% by knockout. So I think there's a good chance somebody does get knocked out here. It's just you take a look at the price tags, and it's just crazy. And we'll talk more about it later in the video when we get to Ike Villanueva. But yeah, Prachnio 9,000, Ike Villanueva 7,200. I think that should be much closer. This feels like an 8,200, 8,000 matchup. I think Ike Villanueva has a ton of value. So I'm more so on playing the Ike side. But with that said, we have seen Ike Villanueva get knocked out more times than once, more times than twice, 5 times actually. So I think Prachnio could get a finish, but if he does, I do think it's going to be later in the fight. But yeah, I'm kind of more on the Ike side at 7,200 for the value there. But either way, I do see this fight probably finishing one way or another. All right, next we have Jay Herbert going against Renato Moicano. Another fight that I do see finishing. I think Moicano, if he does get this down to the mat, I think there's a very good chance he gets a submission. Herbert, if he keeps it on the feet, or if Moicano decides not to shoot takedowns, he's going to be very live for a knockout. We've seen Moicano dropped several times. We've seen him knocked out 3 times. And Herbert can crack. Herbert has a 90% finish rate, 80% of those wins by knockout. So if Moicano, tests his striking out against Herbert, which, by the way, I do think Moicano is a better striker. It's just a chin that I worry about. I think Moicano needs to get this down to the mat early and often. I do think if he does that, he wins the fight. It's just if he does stand with Herbert for long periods of time, he is taking the risk of getting knocked out. So again, I like both sides here. More so on the Moicano side, I definitely think he should win. But Herbert is absolutely live for a knockout just based off of the chin issues of Moicano. So we're getting into the core plays here. Just talked about it a little bit. Renato Moicano, 9,400. I think he should absolutely win this fight. And, I mentioned he got knocked out 3 times, but he's getting knocked out by, really legit guys. Guys like Jose Aldo, guys like the Korean Zombie, guys like Fiziev, guys like that. And I don't think Herbert is anywhere near the level, honestly, not even close. I think Moicano, if he does go to that ground game, I think it's going to be a first-round submission. Moicano, he's a wizard on the mat, has finished half his fights by submission. No knockouts on his record. But yeah, I've seen Herbert taken down, multiple times. I've seen his back taken. I've seen, opponents get into mount. So if Moicano gets into mount or, takes his back, the fight's going to be over shortly after. So I do expect Moicano to win here. It's just the chin issues that are making me not go all in on him here at this play here. So I do like Moicano to win, and I do like him to win by first round submission at 9,400. I do think there is takedown upside, control time upside, and probably an early finish upside as well for Moicano. Next, we have Shavkat Rakhmonov going against Michel Prazeres. I guess the one thing I want to point out is going to be the finish rate of Rakhmonov. 100% finish rate in 13 fights. I think he's been to the third round maybe once or twice. But yeah, Prazeres, he is getting up there in age, 39 years old, about to be 40, I think, next month. And Rakhmonov's going to have a 7-inch height advantage and also a 10-inch reach advantage as well. Prazeres coming off of a 2-year layoff from PED suspension and also a surgery as well. There's just so many things going against Prazeres, and I do like Rakhmonov to get the win. The only thing is Prazeres in 29 fights, he has never ever been finished, but I do think that can be the first time here. Prazeres, his gas tank's not great. He's getting up there in age. I think Prazeres might have success early in the fight, but as it goes on, I do see Rakhmonov taking over and probably getting a late finish himself. So I'm going to go with a Rakhmonov by KO, and at 9,100, I don't hate that whatsoever. I do think there is finish upside. It's hard to ignore a guy with 100% finish rate. Next, we have Alexander Volkov at 7,500. And yeah, not a fight that I'm honestly crazy about. I'm not crazy about the 8,700 on Cyril Gane. And I'm not, even crazy about the 7,500 on Volkov. But I'd rather be playing the 7,500 on Volkov here. This is a fight that is going to be very close. I do think it does go to decision. So it's going to have 5 rounds to work with. I just have some concerns about the ceilings between the two. I don't really see either guy getting knocked out here. So if Cyril Gane wins 8,700, I think he could, get 85, maybe 90 points. But even then, especially on this slate, I don't know if it's enough to hit the optimal lineup. But if Volkov wins, it goes 5 rounds. Maybe he does get 85, 90 points at that price tag, 7,500. I do think it could be enough to get in the optimal lineup. So I'm not going to be playing much of the main event as a whole, but I will be playing some decent amount of Volkov, 7,500. I do think there's a good chance he does win. And if he does, I don't think he has a crazy ceiling, but I do think it could be enough to hit the optimal lineup. But as far as, Cyril Gane's side, I think there's a good chance he does win, but I'm really concerned about the upside and the ceiling of a Cyril Gane, and the ownership is going to be crazy on him as well. So not a fight I'm overly interested in, but Volkov is the preferred play there in the main event for me. Next, we have Kennedy and Zekachu, 8,200. Yeah, this is a fight I'm going to have a lot of exposure to as a whole. And I do lean towards the Kennedy side. He does have a 78% takedown defense. When he does get taken down, very good get up game going against Marquez, who he's looked solid lately, but he's looked really solid against Khadisi Ibragimov, somebody that went 0-4 in the UFC. He submitted Mike Rodriguez, who has 3 submission losses, has a 38% takedown defense. So I don't know how well to rate those wins, but this is going to be Marquez's toughest test by a decent amount against Kennedy and Zekachu, who, like I said, has a really good takedown defense, a really good get-up game, lots of volume, and insane cardio. He's going to have a massive cardio advantage, striking advantage, and he's going to be 6 years younger as well. I do like Kennedy to stuff the takedowns and put it on Marquez on the feet, eventually finding that knockout. But with that said, I do think Marquez is a decent play as well, because if Marquez wins, it's going to score a ton of points. So the fight as a whole, I think it's a good one to target, but I'm more so on the Kennedy side myself. But then I will have both sides in this fight. Getting into our GPP plays here, our tournament plays, Warlley Alves, 9,200. He has that first round upside. Wells has never been finished. He looks like a tough guy, but you go through his record, he's never fought anybody, even close to the level of competition of a Warlley Alves. I do think there's a very good chance that Alves does get it done, and does get it done in that first round. So I think it's a great tournament play. If he does not get it done in that first round, I do have some concerns about him going forward in the fight. He does tend to gas out. He does tend to slow down quite a bit. But then again, I am kind of picking Alves to win here in the first round. At a 9,200, I do think he scores pretty well. Getting into the next play, Charles Rosa, 8,600. Interesting play here. I think this is a fight that you're going to want to target going against Justin James. And all 4 of Justin James' UFC fights have ended inside the distance one way or another. Whether it's James getting the finish or James getting finished himself, James has been finished in rounds 1, 2, and 3 in his in his UFC fights thus far, I believe, or maybe 2 first-round finishes on him. But either way, he's getting finished quite a bit when he does lose. And you take a look at the finish rates between the two. Charles Rosa, 88% finish rate, 62% by submission, 23% by knockout. So Rosa just about a 90% finish rate, so he's more than capable of finishing. Jane's 81% finish rate himself, and Jane's has been finished in 3 out of his 7 losses. So the thing with Jane's is he's going to come out hot. He's going to probably look really good early, but he has about a round of gas. After that, I do see Rosa taking over, even going for takedowns himself against Justin James. And at that point, I do think Rosa is very live for a ton of takedowns, control time, and probably a submission as well. I mean, Justin James, like I said, 1 round of gas. After that, I do think the submission for Rosa is very, very live. So give me Charles Rosa for the win. And I do think there's a very good chance he does score well, just based off the style of Justin James. So I think Rosa is solid at 8,600. Next, we have Damir Hadzovic, 8,500. And this is a very interesting one going against Yancy Medeiros. Yancy Medeiros, just some stats I want to point out. He does land 4.05, but he does absorb 5.38 significant strikes per minute with a negative significant strike differential of 1.33. And to go along with that, he has a 46% striking defense, which is not great, hittable, and he doesn't really have the chin to back it up. Yancy Medeiros has been dropped, I think, like 7 times, something like that in the UFC, and he has been knocked out 3 times. So Hadzovic, he definitely can crack, has a 77% finish rate, 54% by knockout, finishing over half his wins by knockout. I think there's a solid chance that Damir gets a knockout here. And this is the first fight of the night. If you guys know me, you guys know how much I do love that first fight of the night. I do think it's always going to be low owned. And I don't know what it is, but it always seems to find its way on the optimal lineup, no matter who's fighting outside of the Collier Philippe fight. But even then, I feel like this fight as a whole has a decent chance to find the optimal first fight of the night, low ownership. I think Hadzovic is a solid play to get the finish. But with that said, Medeiros, he's a finisher as well. 80% finish rate for Medeiros. We have seen Hadzovic knocked out before, and we have seen him submitted. So I think this fight as a whole is like a really sneaky fight to target, but I do lean with Hadzovic, and 8,500 is not a terrible play. Next, we have Ioni Barcelos, 8,800. Interesting play here because this is going to be a very competitive fight, I feel like, but I still feel like it's going to score well. You take a look at Barcelos, and he averages, I think, like 98 DraftKings points in a win. And if you get 98 here at 8,800, it's probably enough to get in the optimal lineup, depending on what else happens on the slate. But I do think there's a solid chance he can score well and win here just with the volume. He throws a ton of volume, lands 5.59 significant strikes per minute, and he also goes to that ground game quite a bit. Very good wrestler, averages 2.33 takedowns per 50 minutes with a 56% accuracy. Going against Valiev, who can be taken down. We've seen him taken down a couple times in the UFC. We've seen him taken down a lot on the regional scene. And yes, he has a very good get-up game, but that just means that Barcelos is probably going to get a lot more takedowns. So I like Barcelos here to get the win. I don't know if he finishes Valiev, but even then, I feel like it's going to be a fight that has a ton of output, a ton of grappling going on, and I feel like the winner as a whole probably scores decent, but I'm more so leaning towards Barcelos being able to get takedowns, being able to stay on top, get some control time, and win a decision here. At 8,800, I don't think he has like a crazy ceiling, but I do think he can score pretty well in a win. And then we'll get to our live dogs here, and there's a ton of live dogs. I mean, you can make a case for most of these underdogs this week, starting with Justin James, 7,600, a guy you have to have ownership to just because of his fighting style. He's going to come out there and try to take Charles Rosa's head off in that first round. If he does not do it, he's going to lose, but if he does it, he's going to score quite a bit. So I do think James is going to be one of the more popular plays on the slate, and for a really good reason. He's a finisher. I think he has like 11 or 12 first-round finishes in his career, so when he gets it done, he's getting it done in that first round. That's just his style, especially as of late. So I like James as an underdog play because if he does win, it's hard to see him not end up on the optimal lineup at the first-round finish. Daniel Pineda, a guy that's extremely similar. And Daniel Pineda, 7,300, I think he's a solid underdog play here going against Andre Fili, who has been finished before. Fili has 2 knockout losses and 2 submission losses as well. Pineda has a 100% finish rate, and it's insane because it's out of 41 fights. 41 fights, he has finished all of his wins. He's finished all 27 of his wins. He's never ever won by decision. So that right there, it sticks out to you, and especially from a DFS perspective. So Pineda, he has been finished 9 times himself. Like I said, kind of like the James thing. He has about a round of cardio. After that, he does slow down quite a bit, especially nowadays coming off of a PED suspension. He looked terrible in that Cub-Swanson fight after the first round, really gassed out. I can kind of see the same thing happening here, but he's going to be very live in that first round to win. He's very dangerous on the mat. He's a legit black belt in BJJ. I think he has like 18 submission wins, and he's also dangerous on the feet. He can crack for sure. So I think Daniel Pineda's live. I think he's live for a first round finish, and at 7,300, I don't think is a terrible dog to target at all. Danilo Marquez, 8,000. Talked about it a little bit, but yeah, if he wins, it's going to score well. He's going to, especially with the new DraftKings scoring system, he's going to go for takedowns at will. As soon as the bell rings, he's going to shoot for a takedown. Does he get it? I'm leaning towards no, but if he does, yeah, he can score very well. The control time, the takedowns, possible submission. If Marquez wins, it probably scores a ton of DraftKings points. The only thing I don't like is he throws no output at all. But even then, at 8,000, if he does win, if he does, get takedowns, control time, I do think it's probably enough to find the optimal lineup. And as a whole, I do see this fight scoring well. And I'm personally going the other side. But like I said, if Marquez does win, it does probably score decent. So I'll take some shots on him for sure. But I am personally going with Kennedy and Zekachu. Ike Villanueva, 7,200. A line that I feel is very off, and especially on DraftKings, like 7,200 for Ike against Prachnio, who has been knocked out all four times, I believe, in the first round. Prachnio, who, has a terrible, terrible chin against Ike Villanueva, who can definitely crack. And I think the smaller cage is going to favor a guy like Ike Villanueva. He's going to be able to come forward, land bombs, and I think there's a solid chance that he can put Marcin Prachnio out here for the 5th time in his career and for the 4th time in the UFC. So I do like Ike, especially at this price tag. He's somebody that's going to really fight for your money. He's somebody that's going to come forward, wing bombs, and try to get that knockout. So I don't hate Ike whatsoever at 7,200. I think is a pretty solid underdog play here. Getting into our punt plays, the punt range, it's crazy because you can make a case for like every single punt down here. You can make a case for Herbert. You can make a case for Stolyarenko. You can make a case for Wells. You can even make a case for Michel Prazeres. So I think a lot of these plays are live. Maybe you can see a situation where it was like UFC 263 where the punt range just absolutely went off. Maybe it could be this week as well because, man, there's a lot of solid plays down in this punt range. So Jai Herbert, 6,800. I'm expecting him to lose, but man, if Moicano comes out here and he doesn't go for takedowns, and if this is on the feet, yes, I do think Moicano is the much better fighter and the much better striker. It's that chin of Moicano. He's been knocked out, more than once, more than twice, and Herbert can absolutely crack. Like I mentioned, 90% finish rate for Herbert, 6,800. He could win. He could very well win, and if he does win, it is probably by knockout. So I do like Herbert as a punt play. I'm personally going with Moicano, but at 6,800, if he does win, it's probably on the optimal lineup with the KO. Jeremiah Wells, 7,000 going against Worldy Alves. He's going to have to survive the early storm of Alves. Alves has, nowadays about a round of gas, if that. But I'm personally taking Alves to get that first round finish. It's just if, Wells is able to survive, which he has never been finished in 10 fights. I do think Wells has the skill set to take over. Not the most volume, but he's very dangerous on the feet, has a ton of power. BJJ black belt himself, good wrestler, great on top. So if he does survive the early storm, I do think he's very, very live. At 7K, I'll take some shots. And like I mentioned, Stolyarenko, maybe a couple shots on her. She's live, 90% finish rate, all by armbar, all by submission. And then Michel Prazeres, if he does win, it probably scores well as well. He's a wrestler, lots of takedowns, but 40 years old is really hard to get there. So yeah, I think this punt range is very interesting, and I think there's a lot of live dogs this week. So getting into the fades, there's not really anybody that I'm going to completely outright fade this week. I think everybody's pretty much in play, even up top. Julia Avila, I think she's in play. But I guess the play I'm least looking forward to having is going to be Nicholas Dalby. I'm not going to have that much of him. So if I had to pick one fade on the entire slate, it's going to be him. Based off of, he doesn't do much. He doesn't really score well when he does win. And he's not a finisher. I don't really see him finishing Tim Means. You take a look at Dalby and his finish rate, only a 53% finish rate, which is one of the worst on the slate. Maybe he goes for takedowns, but even then, I don't really see him having much success. I do like Tim Means in the fight to win. Dalby, I just don't. Even if he wins, I just don't see him finding the optimal lineup, especially on a slate where you're going to need finishes. You're going to need people that are going to get takedowns, control time, and I just don't see that out of Dalby. So if I had to pick like one fade on the slate, it would probably be Dalby. I just don't see him scoring well. And just a reminder, it's always a great time to become a Patreon and receive the full access to the model, premium projections, the new optimizer, GPP line percentages, DraftKings article, access to Discord, and much, much more. The advanced stats, courtesy of Uncle Weezy. Lots of good stuff going on there. $10 a month. Also have the $20 option, which includes the DFS and betting, which people seem to like as well. So go check that out. Lots of good stuff on there. So that's about it. And tune into the live stream, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, and then the live stream on Saturday at 12 o'clock p.m. in the afternoon. I can't wait for this card. I think it's going to be fun. I think, like I said, we're going to have some high scores. I think we're going to have some finishes. And, of course, always another opportunity to make money. So That's about it, guys. Good luck on UFC Vegas 30, and I'll talk to you very, very soon.